Hey everyone, so this is my first Chats with Chels. I'm hoping to bring you guys some interesting entrepreneurial content. We are here at Common Ground where we just had a Blog Plus Talk YYT meetup. So I'm here with Lesley of Lantern Custom Support for Entrepreneurs. So if you just want to let us know what that's all about.
Yeah, I started my business Lantern in September. Basically pulling together all of the skills that I've picked up over the past decade of working in different industries. And I offer services, myself and my team offer services to entrepreneurs who are just overwhelmed, who have way too much stuff on their plate. And of course, as you know, one person can't run a business all by themselves. It takes a team of people, whether it's just someone who comes in, does some graphic design for you, writes a blog post for you once in a while, we do all those kinds of things. We help with, we can help with admin work, we can help with some sales funnels, all kinds of stuff. So we just help overwhelmed entrepreneurs, particularly in the coaching industry, get through their to-do list because, who can do it all on their own?
So that sounds really awesome. So one of the things that I really love about Lesley's website and her blog, is her blog, she's been killing it, really good at it, has great promo about it, and it's always like catching your eye. So, why did you start using blogging in your business?
I did that because, one, it's kind of selfish because I just love blogging. I started out blogging, I think, in like 2012 or something like that, just as a hobby, and then it fizzled out because life got busy and I just didn't have a focus with my blog. And then when I started this business, I got really excited because I realized, hey, I can do blogging again, and I write blogs for mostly for client education, to share value, to share things like tips, tricks, how to do these things, why you should do these things. And also I share blog posts about like, what is the value of what I do? What does a virtual assistant or digital marketer or online business manager have to offer to entrepreneurs? So I help educate about that.
That's awesome. So, that's like an interesting perspective because, a lot of blogs are just like writing recipes or, my own is like a travel blog. So using it to integrate into business, I think, is a really cool idea. So if you're like, let's say I'm like just getting started and like I want to make a blog about my business or, what are some tips for the beginner?
For the beginner, I would say, one, I know people don't want to hear this, but I really think it's got to look pretty in order for people to actually want to read it. I know that there's going to be people arguing and saying like, oh, but my content's so good, the writing's so good that it doesn't matter. I literally think it does matter. And I know some people don't want to hear it, but literally I do think that it's worth investing in either, you don't have to spend a whole lot on getting a pretty blog, but you can buy templates on, Creative Market, on Etsy, stuff like that, because people, when they show up to your blog, they want to be wowed and maybe not wowed, but they want to be connected in some sort. And like, an old, remember GeoCities? I don't remember, you might be too young. An old GeoCities kind of website that's just like obviously homemade is not going to cut it. So I think you want to find a style, whether it's just a nice template that you bought for $20 on Etsy, or you can spend thousands of dollars on it. I do think it's worth spending the time making your blog look pretty, but I also think that really outlining what the blog is about is important too. So if you're a food blogger, write about food. Don't write about like, food once a month and then like, oh, you made a craft here and there. Like, be more focused than anything. Of course, you can have a food blog with a DIY blog. Just brand it that way. Like, have a focus and make sure your audience knows what they're there to see or what they're going to see as soon as they get on your blog.
So that's some really great tips, and that's one of the things that we come across a lot is, being consistent and, having a focus. And I attended a session with Enlo, and they had like a great thing. One of their breakout shops was with Crystal from Reflective, and it was having 3 content buckets. So it was like the 3 focuses that you have for your business. So for myself, it's the digital marketing side of it, but I also really love supporting local business, and also just ingraining like storytelling and Newfoundland culture into the things that I do. So those were kind of my three focuses, which I, tend to go through. So I think that's really cool, and that's really some great advice.
Cool.
Now, for someone like me who's like a little bit more into blogging, what are some tips, if you have like a bit of a writer's block, you haven't made anything in a while?
I actually wrote a blog post about this recently because I was hitting, blogger's block is what I call it. And I was like, oh God, what do I write about? And so I wrote a blog about that. So what did I write about in that blog post? First, I said, I think, like, poll your audience. Just a simple Facebook post, whether it's on your business page, your blog page, or just your personal page. You can literally just ask, what do you guys want to know about? Is there something on your mind? Maybe someone, one of your friends, if you're like a lifestyle blogger or something like that, or healthy lifestyle blogger, they might just be like dying to know what's the deal with essential oils, for example. You're like, oh, everyone's talking about this and I just don't get it. Can you write a blog post about that? You might get awesome feedback like that. Another thing you might want to do is check out blogs that inspire you. So, for example, one of mine, I talk about her a little bit, but there's a website called wonderlass.com, and she has amazing content that is super relevant to my business because it's all about, marketing yourself and promoting your business and creating an authentic brand. And so sometimes when I'm stuck, I go to her blog. I don't copy anything. I don't say like, oh yeah, she wrote about that, I should, write about it too. But I go there for inspiration, and I have a browse through. I might read a few things, but then I find just the act of going to someone who inspires you will automatically inspire ideas. So she might have a blog post about, she talks about creating an authentic brand all the time. If I'm reading that blog post, she might have like a little point or just something in there that sparks an idea in me, like, oh yeah, I did this last week for one of my clients. It worked really well. I can share that. So, those are two ideas. Another thing you can do is just take the pressure off, because when we're like, you probably know this from writing papers, when you're sat there staring at your screen, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? You have so much pressure on you that it's like, it feels like this time bomb that's ticking, that sometimes you just got to get out and take the pressure off, whether it's just like going for a 15-minute walk or, go have coffee with your friends. Usually I find, at least, that little ideas will pop up here and there just through conversation, or just because I've let go of the idea that like I need to write something right now. So there's 3 for you.
That's fantastic. I was watching Connect and Thrive the other day, which is another online tip show through Reflective, and Crystal was with Charlene Carr, and she's actually an author. She has a book series, and one of her main points that she said, she was like, just write. She's like, no one has to see it. That's the really good thing about writing, is no one has to see it until it's like totally ready, when you're happy with it. Just write. You can always go back and fix it later, which I thought was like a really good point too.
Totally. I read that. I can't remember who I read it from, but someone did say like, just write the worst piece of crap you've ever written. Oh yeah, this is one of my clients. Her name is Nancy Tierney, and she's a copywriter. And she says, when you get writer's block, just write the worst piece of crap you've ever written, and then bam, it's out, and then you can go back and improve it. But the main thing is that you've written something, even if it's a pile of junk. You've written something and you've gotten that momentum started.
So I know like one of the questions that I've seen in the Blog Plus Talk YYT and some marketing groups is like, what is like the ideal length? How do you keep your audience engaged through the post?
Yeah, that one is tricky. I've looked on a few different websites. For example, Huffington Post, I think it's Huffington Post, has actual standards. I think it might be 500 to 800 words, something like that. And to me, that's an ideal blog post length. However, I'm really attracted to list posts. So, I might have people argue with me that like they like a nice, like formally written blog post that's more like an essay, but I like list posts because I like to scan things and get my information quick, and so I can take off. So for me, I think formatting is more important than the length itself, unless you're submitting to something like Huffington Post, which they do have really important guidelines to follow, which, if you're submitting to Huffington Post, follow their guidelines. They know what they're doing. But for me, I think formatting is more important than the length for me, because you know, if it's easy to read, easy to scan, then I'm going to spend more time on it, because I'll be like, okay, point number 2 and 3 really catch my eye. I'm going to stop and actually read it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Following along, you know, you want it to get published if
Yeah.
you're studying into something a little bit more formal.
Yeah.
So where can we find out a little bit more about you if anyone wants to follow up?
If you're interested, you can check out lanternsupport.com, and my blog is clearly marked on there. It's lanternsupport.com/blog, and I also have a Facebook page where I go live every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and I share different tips. I have Tip Tuesday, so you can check me out there. So Lantern on Facebook, we're facebook.com/lanternsupport, so you can check me out there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Leslie,
You're
for
welcome.
giving my viewers here some tips, and hopefully I'll be back with some more cool people like Leslie to give you guys some tips on your business. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.